The following episode is brought to you by Poison City Brewing, proud makers of Durban Poison Cannabis Lager, the beer that invites you to live your poison.
So welcome back to another episode of Sludge Underground. Today we have a really special guest, and yeah, all our guests are generally quite special, but this one is from a local legend that we all knew at some point in our lives as musicians or as fans of the local music scene. Josh, introduce yourself again.
Hey everyone, this is Josh from Gangs of Ballet, and I'm calling you all the way from Sri Lanka.
How did you end up in Sri Lanka? What was there? What sort of happened from there?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. I mean, stuff with Gangs kind of came to a halt pretty quickly. And basically, we made the decision once Gangs had finished. It was kind of the first time that we could do whatever we wanted without consulting like 6 other people. Because obviously when you're in a band, everybody's got to be on the same page. So it was kind of the first time that we could do whatever we wanted. And there's a brother between Brad and I. His name's Jeremy, and he's lived in Sri Lanka for 4 years, and he actually has a hotel here. So I hadn't spent much time with him because he moved away. We hadn't been in the same city for like 13 years or something like that. So I was just like, oh man, well, I'm free to do whatever I want now. So let's just go on a bit of an adventure. And we just up and moved. Yeah.
Is he a musician as well?
Not really. I mean, he can play. My whole family's pretty musical, but my Jeremy's a very interesting character. He's been from like working on airlines to being the head of a paintball company to quitting his job and moving here and now just opening up a hotel. So he's a bit of an entrepreneur, actually.
That's incredibly interesting. Like it seems like doing interesting things kind of runs in the family.
Yeah, we've all kind of taken pretty interesting little paths, so that's cool.
That's interesting. Are you pursuing music that side or other things at this point in time?
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Like when I moved across here, I kind of just wanted to take a little bit of a break as well, just from doing a lot of touring and just, yeah, I mean, I needed a little break. So I sat around for like, I don't know, just 8 months surfing and just chilling out here. It was so nice. And then my brother had always wanted to put a recording studio into his hotel. And dude, where the hotel is set up, it's across the road from like absolute paradise, like it's literally across the road from the beach. So one of the things he always wanted to do was put the studio in. And obviously, because I'd been doing music for so many years, I'd just accumulated a lot of gear along the way. So I already owned like most of the gear to do it. So I was like, okay, well, let's do it. So I did a trip back to South Africa last year in August. When I was there, I just packed up all of my gear and shipped it across here. So now I'm sitting doing this interview in my recording studio that is across the road from a beach, like the most amazing beach. I can't believe it. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now is I've just opened up this space.
This is fantastic. So you've literally got like the dream studio in, like you said, a literal paradise.
Dude, it's unbelievable. I can't believe it. Like, I remember we had just kind of finished the build, and I spent a day in here, and I literally went from making music in the studio all day. I went for a late afternoon surf, and then like had a beer with my mates in the evening. I was just literally just like, how the heck have I cracked the system here? How is this my life now? You know what I mean? So yeah, it's been a very interesting year and a half.
My first like thought about this is coming back to SA and then getting all your gear brought across. Now, I can only imagine how stressful it must have been bringing literal thousands of rands worth of gear, trying to get that into another country and hoping it gets there in one piece.
Yeah, it actually, to be honest, it wasn't as tricky as I thought it was going to be. But there is the element of like everything that I own gets put into a bunch of crates and then goes on the sea for like a month. So that was pretty stressful. But I don't know. I mean, like it's just what we needed to do, you know. So the problem with Sri Lanka, especially where we're based in Sri Lanka, we're down south and it's pretty undeveloped. Like I'm basically living in, it's a village, but it's tourism is slowly starting to increase, or actually not slowly, rapidly starting to increase down here. But because we're so far down south, it's really hard to get hold of good gear. And for a recording studio, you obviously want really high end gear. You want the best gear that you can get your hands on. Like one of the things I really wanted to have in this space was a vintage drum kit, which I had at home. I've got this amazing 1976 Ludwig acrylic kit. It sounds really incredible. So I put that in the crate, and I've got that here. And I know that you can't get that anywhere near here. Like that doesn't exist in Sri Lanka. So I know I've got the only one, which kind of makes the space pretty cool for me.
Yeah, that's not a how would I say, like in any terms, like a cheap kit. That's like, if it's Ludwig, it's absolutely astounding. And having that there, how has that influenced your studio's overall sort of reputation? And how many of the guys have you tracked that side? Has business been going well in terms of tracking artists, and how would you compare them to the South African guys?
Yeah, well, dude, this is the flippant thing. It's obviously with the lockdown, we managed to perfectly time it to open the studio like a week before we got locked down completely. So right now, like this place is a ghost town. There's no tourists here at all. There's no one. So it's basically which is in a weird way, it's been a bit of a blessing in disguise, because I've been able to just spend like hours and hours and hours just figuring out the space and getting my own head around it. I've never run a studio. I've recorded a lot in my life. I've written and produced a lot in my life, but I've never really had to engineer, and so that's a whole new skill that I've had to get my head around. So it's been a lot of fun, actually, just sitting here by myself in this room, like recording some stuff, listening, researching how to do stuff. Man, it's been one of the best things I think I've ever done in my life, actually.
That's incredible. How would you say your experience with Gangs has sort of carried over into your experience as an engineer, or going forward as an engineer?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's actually really huge. I learned a hell of a lot from being in Gangs. Gangs was always a side project. It was never meant to be a thing, And at the time, we were studying music, and we kind of got thrust the whole band's career rapidly, launched. And through that, we got to, I've got to rub shoulders with some incredible like musicians, some incredible engineers. I got to meet, there's a guy called Rusty Rousseau. He's actually in London now, but he's from Cape Town originally. And dude, he's one of the best engineers I've ever like worked with. And through that's just doing he recorded all the Gang stuff pretty much. And he helped me massively with setting up the space, what gear to get. Dude, yeah. Gangs is one of the biggest learning curves and amazing things to happen to me, for sure.
I'm actually quite mind blown that hearing you say that Gangs started out as a side project, is just something that you guys had as a creative outlet. Just walk me through that experience of suddenly realizing that, wait, this has become something far more than we ever anticipated.
Geez, I mean, it was quite a thing for us too. So like I said, at the time we were all in varsity, and we actually had a different frontman when we first started. So it was just a side project band. There was another guy fronting it, and Brad was originally playing bass. And we basically started the band because Brad's like, man, I'd love to play bass for a band. So we're like, oh, okay, well, let's put together this band and we can just jam some songs. And through the years, Brad and I have been really, really bad at recording whatever songs we've written, And my brother Jeremy, the one between us, the one that I'm with in Sri Lanka now, he gave us some cash and he's like, guys, go and record these songs. Just go and record a demo. You can have this cash. Just go and do it. So we basically did that first EP with cash that we got given. He just basically wanted us to document the songs, right? And it came out. I'm pretty stoked with how that came out. It didn't cost us a lot of money, and we missioned to get it done. And somewhere along the line, Kath Grenfell from 5FM, she got hold of our single "Breaking the Silence," and she just like submitted it on our behalf to radio. Next thing we knew, this song was getting play on 5FM. And then we found out that it was charting, and dude, it got all the way up into top 10. And I mean, we're at varsity. This was never meant to be a thing. You know what I mean? All of a sudden now, I kid you not, that when it hit top 10, man, we just had like labels contacting us. Like, it was just crazy. Like, we knew nothing about the music industry really. And yeah, ended up signing to a major label, and there you have it. Gangs was born. Pretty weird story.
It sounds like it could have been incredibly overwhelming at the time. Like,
yeah, dude, it was. I mean, it was overwhelming, but it was incredibly exciting. I mean, we never thought that anything was even going to come from it. And yeah, lucky for us, we ended up. We have a guy called Ryan Finlay who ended up coming on board and managing us, and he was pretty clued up in the industry. Like, he knew what was cutting. So we would go into these label meetings and we'd just sit there quietly, and he would just basically like negotiate all these cons, man, because we didn't know what the heck we were doing. So we had Ryan, who was in our corner, and we had a mate of ours who was a lawyer who was in our corner. And yeah, I think just slowly along, we just bumped our heads and tried to figure everything out as it was coming, you know?
No, that's incredible. Like, that's such an incredible story about, you know, like you were saying, how this thing just suddenly rapidly progressed. What would you say is your fondest memory of those early days of, you know, everything coming together? Like, the one particular point that stands out for you?
Oh man, there's so many good memories. Like, I'll tell you the one thing that I loved about being a part of Gangs. We got to do so many like amazing things. That Gangs, literally, it only got opened up because we were in that band and stuff was happening. You know what I mean? So we've got loads of good memories. But the one that really stands out is when we first heard that song playing on radio. That was like, yeah, that was amazing. That was like a complete first for us. So that feeling is up there when you like get your license. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're like, yes, we've accomplished something.
Yeah, like,
so,
it's a major achievement. Like,
yeah, I mean, it was just super cool, and we were really stoked. We danced around the lounge, and we were happy when we heard it on the radio. To be honest, even if that's lame, I don't know, but it was really exciting for us.
like, as a musician myself, as an artist, I honestly, I can only imagine, like, I would probably do the same. It does not sound lame to me at all. If I had to suddenly hear a song that I had made on the radio and I did not expect much to come out of it, I would have lost it. I would have I would have been up in the air. Like, it sounds like a completely rational reaction to me.
Yeah, I mean, well, we definitely made a point of celebrating all those little moments. Yeah, it was really great.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Gangs, you guys got to tour outside of the country, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Not really over. We toured into African countries. We got into we did some shows in Zimbabwe, and I think we did Zambia, we did Lesotho, but we never really actually pushed out. If there's one thing that I would change about what we did with Gangs, is I would have pushed us overseas into Europe. I think it's my one kind of regret about the band, that we never did that. But it's really tough, because, you know, when you look back on things, it's like, you don't know at the time, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't know. We were just trying to figure it out as we went along, you know, and it's expensive to tour overseas, and I think that kind of psyched us out a little bit. So if I could go back, that's the one thing I would change for sure.
Now, obviously, being inside of a different country, how would you compare your music scene over there versus to here in South Africa?
It's actually quite weird, because there's a lot of live music here, but it's largely like cover bands, guys that do covers, which is quite different to obviously what we're used to in South Africa. One of my first nights when I got here, we went out to this club, and there's this band here that's called The Soul, all Sri Lankan dudes. Man, they are incredible. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't expecting it at all. And I watched these guys perform, and I was just like, man, these guys are the absolute real deal. And I would actually really love to try and get The Soul to South Africa to come play some festivals there, because I think they could teach a lot of people how to play live, to be honest, man. Like, they were pretty phenomenal.
It's when I think of live music, Sri Lanka isn't a place that actually pops into my mind at all, which is makes me so curious, because I also find that a lot of African countries where you wouldn't expect there to be a thriving scene like that, there are. I mean, for instance, Mozambique, and there was another, I think, I can't remember the other one now, but Botswana. Yes, so Botswana and Mozambique, I know they also have thriving scenes and places that people generally wouldn't expect. And thinking
Yeah.
about Sri Lanka as well, hopefully more comes out of it.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, like this place, this place is a bit of a dark horse, to be honest. There's a lot of live music actually, and I think in South Africa the market is dominated by DJs and stuff. And there's a fair amount of DJs here, but what I quite like is even though these bands are doing covers, right? It's still they've kind of taken the place of a DJ. So like they're playing covers, but man, people are just having a good time. Like there's a that club that we went to, they've got like 500 people, 600 people a night, every night, like people just jamming to a band. It's insane. It's really amazing.
And obviously, there would be some form of evolution from there. You know, there's people enjoying live music, and these people would obviously be inspired to do more. So
Yeah.
there's more to that.
I'm really just keen on just finding out, dude. One of the things that, or rather, one of my favorite sort of performances of all time. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, but I remember when I was in varsity, dude, and we'd go to the computer lab, and this was back in probably 2014, and basically I on YouTube, dude, and I check out one of your performances that you did at Rocking the Daisies 2013. Walk me through that. How was the whole experience playing there? Like I said, it's one of my favorite performances. And yeah, dude, how was that whole experience playing Rocking the Daisies?
Oh man, that's a really incredible festival, and it's a really tough one to actually play. To get in on that festival is tricky. So it was a real privilege to actually even be there in the first place. And I think if I remember that festival, I think we actually had quite a decent slot. Actually, that was really an amazing experience. I'll say this: it's the one really amazing thing in SA. Well, not the one thing, but one of the most amazing things about the South African scene is there's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of bands and artists in it, right? Once you get into that kind of, I don't know how to say it, like bracket, or where you're playing a main stage at a festival, like there's so many bands around the world that would love the opportunity to play to thousands of people. And we get to do that. Like that festival is insane. People are there to have a good time. It's great sound. The tech guys know what they're doing, and you before you and after you are incredible bands or artists. You know what I mean? It's really playing. Those moments are insane, and I miss those moments. I really do miss playing those types of big festivals. So I actually, it's funny that you brought that show up. My parents were sitting in Durban yesterday, and they were on YouTube, and they was actually streaming that show. So I know exactly what show you're talking about. So especially at that time, I think we were on Yes No Grey, and H was still in the band playing bass with us. Man, that was a good time. That was a good year for us.
Dude, it's incredible that you mentioned H as well, bro, because I actually went to one of his last shows when you guys played at the Plant. I don't know if you'll remember this, bro. You guys played a show at the Plant in Durban, bro, and it was just so surreal to me, man. It was just like, holy crap, like these guys are like right here. And I think I saw a couple of other shows as well. I think with all the bands that we've had on Sludge, I think you guys might have been the band that I've seen the most. Walk me through the final few gigs that you played with H, you know, knowing that, you know what, this is sort of the final hurrah sort of with him in the band.
Oh man, that's kind of weird. In a weird, unspoken way, we knew it was coming, and H, there was no bad vibes with us and H. Like he's a fully qualified chiropractor. Yeah, he's done really well, to be honest. I think he's opened 2 practices, and he's now in London doing the same thing. But he was an absolute pillar. Like that guy is a monster on bass. Like he's a monster bass player. So it was exciting in a way that we would have to try and make a plan and try and how do you replace, because the strength of H is he was incredibly solid and easy to groove with. So for me as a drummer, I loved playing with H. The other thing is he was a good presence on stage. And then the third thing about H is H's tone was massive. Like, and those aren't simple things to come by. It's really hard to find a musician that ticks all the boxes, you know. There's a lot of guys that are really good players, but they don't have a good ear for tone, which is a whole other side to things, you know. There's a reason that you can hear the difference. Two drummers can get up on the same kit, right? One's been playing for 2 years, one's been playing for 10 years, and you will play the same beat, same kit, but you will dramatically hear the difference. It's just because of the mileage, you know. And H had mileage. H has played many shows, and he's played for a long time. So he was quite a big loss for us. In saying that, the only kind of option we actually thought is we didn't really know who to replace him on the bass guitar. So we thought it would be a cool idea because Jono, what most people don't know about Jono is a monster bass player. Jono actually played bass when I was studying music. He was studying with me at the time. We were doing jazz, and Jono was doing bass. And he actually played for my final year honors recital. Jono played the bass for it. So he's a mean bass player. So we were just like, all right, Jono, you're on bass and synth.
Simultaneously. Like,
yeah, literally. So, and like, if you know Jono, in fact, Gangs, one of the things we really prided ourselves in is that we didn't run any tracks. We wanted to, whatever we were doing on stage, we wanted to play everything. As much as we possibly could, we wanted to play everything. Long and short of it is Jono got lumped with playing bass and synth. Which I think he did. Yeah, I think he did well. He did a good job on it.
It's interesting what you're saying about the boxes being checked as a musician, because sadly, like, having all those boxes checked as a bassist is incredibly rare. Like, bass is an incredibly underrated instrument. A lot of people don't necessarily go through that much effort to be, you know, those sort of things. It's far more complex, and like you were saying, a bass tone makes a huge difference. And checking all those boxes, like you said, can imagine that being a huge loss.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing that is not really spoken about is you've got to be in a van with that person. Do you know what I mean? You're going to be sharing rooms and beds and cars and planes, and you're going to be tired and playing back-to-back shows. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to enjoy being with that person, you know. So H was he was the nicest guy on the planet as well, and he was a chiropractor. He used to click my back all the time.
Instant revival on the team, basically.
Yeah,
it's really nice that you also mentioned, you know, Jono there, bro, because refresh my memory. I think it was after one of the times when H had already left. And I don't remember whether it was his leg or his forearm that was injured or whatever, and he had to play with an injury. Like, what had happened there?
The story behind that, Jono broke his leg. But the story behind that is we got asked to, you know, Durban had the Top Gear Festival. So it was the Top Gear Festival, and we got asked to be a part of it. And they basically wanted us to do like a Segway race. And none of us had ridden Segways before. They gave us like 10 or 15 minutes to just like ride around and get used to them. And literally in those 10 minutes, Jono, I don't know how, he kind of lost control and rode into a pillar, and he squashed his leg between the pillar and the Segway, and it broke.
Oh.
So, yeah. So Jono was out the race. H then fell after him. And so basically it just ended up being Brad and I that raced, I think. I don't even know if H made the race. And then by this stage, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to fall in front of all of these people. So I would really start, I didn't even care about the race. And Brad, being the competitive Clansmith that he is, he was racing, but he was racing against this, I forget what her name was, but she was a South African triathlete. And she's obviously mega competitive. So the two of them are like racing head to head. And she like tried to take over Brad and swerved in front of him, and they collided. And she like, I don't know if she sprained her fingers or something, and she was about to leave for a competition. Man, that race was an absolute nightmare. And then we got left with the synth player with a broken leg.
So basically what you're trying to tell me is that you won by default as the last man standing.
I I still didn't win. I was going really slow.
Listening to Naz talk about, gangs and all these sort of things, is you can obviously hear how much you guys had an impact on him as a musician and the level of inspiration that you brought about. Now, how does it feel knowing that it's not just in Naz's case, but with hundreds of other musicians out there who'd seen you and were inspired by you guys?
That's amazing. It's always nice to hear. When you put a lot of time and effort into something, it's nice. It's nice when somebody comes up and says, "Hey, man, I'm pretty inspired by that," or I like your music. Or, I mean, the end of the day, you don't only hear positive stuff. We heard a lot of negative stuff. We had a lot of people who hated us, which is fine. To be honest, it wasn't a problem for us because we knew that we were never going to hit everyone. If we can inspire just one person, I think that's really cool. Yeah, we worked hard. So I hope that that's an inspiration.
One of the aspects that I really wanted to touch on is Yes No Grey, because I've got a lot of favorite gems on there. Like my absolute favorite track on there is All These Things. I know it's the first track, but it's actually one of the songs that sort of drew me to in that YouTube video I was telling you about with Rockin' the Daisies. I was just really, when I watched that, I was like, what song is this even? I did my research and stuff, and there it was. I want you to walk me through, how Yes No Grey sort of came about, and more especially my favorite track. I'm gonna be biased here. All These Things.
Jeepers. Okay, I'm gonna have to rack my memory now. Yeah, I mean, Yes No Grey. Obviously, that was our first full-length album. The EP had done really well for us. I mean, for Yes No Grey, we were at that stage we had signed to EMI, so that would have been our first proper release to EMI. And we worked with Daryl Tor. I don't know if you guys know Daryl Tor, but he had a studio in Joburg called Open Room, and we basically just hit away and try to write as many songs as we possibly could. And we didn't even write that many songs now that I think about it. We maybe wrote about 13 or 15, which is not a lot actually, because to put in perspective, like for one of those EPs that we did after the Form and Function, we probably wrote close to 40 ideas. I mean, not completely finished, but 40 song ideas. That's what we had to go from, and from that we picked 6. We didn't really have that luxury with Yes No Grey. We kind of just went with the ones. And actually, there was a song that we recorded with Open Room that we ended up pulling off, which meant that we were short a song and we were actually short a single. And after our recording had been done, we were back on home in Durban. I had this little song idea, which I showed to Brad. And literally in 30 minutes, we had written the song from beginning to end. And that was Don't Let Me Go. And I think that was actually probably the most successful single from that album, I think. Which is so funny because it took us the least amount of time to write. And we basically tracked it ourselves, and it was the least expensive of the lot. But yeah, you wanted to know about All These Things. All These Things was an idea. I remember how that one got created. Basically, Brad is messing around on the keyboard with the choir effect. It's like that vocal scat sound. I don't know. And I think he pretty much, oh man, I can't even remember now. It's so hard because I don't know who wrote what. I think he wrote the verses, and I might have written the riff. Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I don't even know how to answer that.
You've literally, you've taken us through an entire journey, bro, from where, things sort of began, how you guys shot up, to fame and success and whatnot. I want to know now a very important aspect that you actually mentioned right at the beginning of this interview is that things sort of came to an end and you found yourself having to then move over to Sri Lanka.
Sure.
Sort of walk me through the final moments, bro. Why did you guys stop? I mean, you guys were literally one of the biggest bands, and you'd think, hey, maybe you guys would have gone on and eventually also went overseas, like you said. Why did you guys stop, bro?
Man, it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, it wasn't like there wasn't any bad vibes in the band. I know a lot of people actually thought that there was a lot of fights. So I know, like when we when we announced that we were breaking up, I got quite a few messages saying, "Is everything okay between you and Brad?" But everything was fine. We love each other, and it kind of just felt like we were done, to be honest. There was an energy that we had lost somewhere along the line, and we didn't want to like just fade out into nothing. We were like, well, let's leave on a high. So yeah, I don't know. It was quite strange. I was when did we break up? It was 2018. I remember in the beginning of that year, we had just finished our first show. We were getting on a plane, and I looked at Brad and I said, "Dude, I don't know why, but I feel like this year, you and I are going to have the rug pulled from under us. I don't know why, but that's just the way I felt." And if you had told me that in the end of that year that Gangs was going to be finished, Brad is going to be living in the States and I'd be living in Sri Lanka, I would have absolutely laughed you off. But we were all on the same page. Do you know what I mean? Like, we were all just like, it's the end of an era for us. We want to move on and do other things now, you know?
Do you think we could ever see Gangs of Ballet sort of reunite maybe one day in the future?
I don't know, to be honest. I would like to say yes. I would like to say, yeah, I think we could do a reunion show. I don't know when that would be, but I would love to do it. But I'll tell you, to be honest, like, the biggest hurdle is a lot of our gear and stuff that we used to tour. We don't have a lot of it anymore. So like, it would be a full on thing for us to come back. It's not unfortunately, Gangs was never a simple live act. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff that we were running, and we would have to get our heads around how to do that, for one. The other hurdle is we're in all different parts of the world at this point. So I don't know. I'd like to say yes. I'd love to do a reunion tour. I really would. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I don't know what that would look like or when that would be, but yeah.
You know, and sort of when you look at Yes No Grey, we did talk about that with Form and Function. How was that received compared to, say, Yes No Grey?
We had this idea that we were going to do 3 EPs, right? And under the banner of one album. And the idea was that by the end of it, we were just going to write the songs that we were feeling at that time. And by the end of it, we would have hoped that you could hear like a transition, like in sound, from where we started to where we ended it, which I think you can. I think we achieved that. But oh my gosh, by the 3rd EP, we kind of wished that we had just done albums. It was just, I mean, the songs were received well, but that really confused the matter. I don't know if that was the best call we've ever made, but the songs got received well. We did the first one. We worked with Denim Harding from Just Ginger. He produced the first one, and then the 2 after that we produced ourselves. So yeah, each one was unique. We did it in a different place. Did the first one in Joburg. I think the second one we did in Durban, and the third one we did in Cape Town, actually, now that I think about it. So they were all unique, and they were received well. I think the third one's my favorite, though.
You mentioned there, right at the beginning again, that, you basically, you were studying, you and Johnny were studying, jazz and whatnot.
Yeah.
What sort of led you to getting into, studying music and stuff? And if I'm not mistaken, you went to UKZN.
Yeah. So, well, personally for me, when I was at school, all I wanted to do was music. Started playing drums when I was 10 years old. So I've been doing music. I was in my first band when I was 11. So I've been playing music for a long time. It's all I've ever known and wanted to do, So for me, it was just, yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have parents that have allowed us to do whatever we love to do. I wasn't forced into studying law or something that I'd never want to do. So for me, it was just the natural step. Was like, okay, well, I want to at least get some kind of degree under me, so I might as well do music. For Jono, it was his second degree. Jono had done graphic design, and then after that, he didn't really want to go into that field, so he decided to come and do music. And then Brad only did 1 year of the course. He did the bridging year, the foundation year, which I think he enjoyed. But Brad's not really like a. I don't think Brad likes studying, to be honest. I think he finds it a bit of a struggle. So yeah, he just doesn't. I think it's too boxed for him. Brad's quite an out there thinker. So yeah, I know that's kind of what got us into it.
So now you guys obviously had one intense run playing live shows and playing with a lot of different artists. Are there any artists in particular who stand out as your favorite ones to perform with? Guys that you like, you would say would like your brother band, you know?
I can tell you right now, off the top of my head, Matt Mole. Him and I've got we've got a really good friendship. So I loved when we got to share the lineups. That was always a good time. There's so many good bands. There's so many bands that were so good to us as well. Guys like the Polytones and Prime Circle. Those guys were so good to us when we were coming through. I mean, international bands that we got to play with as well. That was amazing. One of our bands that we grew up listening to was Switchfoot, and like literally grew up listening to Switchfoot, and then we got to open for them. So that was like insane, absolutely insane. So yeah, I know there's loads of bands. Civil Twilight, good friends of ours, huge influences to us, have been for years, you know. Got to tour twice with them. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't know. It's loads of good bands, cheapers.
Yeah, that was one hell of a list, to be honest. I think I would honestly love to have a chat with Matthew Mole. Like he's also been around for a while. I always remember you guys being associated. Weren't you guys, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong in hearing this, you guys, didn't you go to the same school at one point? No, that's Short Straw, if I'm not mistaken. Was Matthew Mole and the guy from Short Straw who went to the same school, if I'm not mistaken. No.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I kind of met Matt, like, I didn't really know Matt at all. And then I met him in Cape Town. Actually, when we were opening for Civil Twilight, we were playing with Civil, and Matt opened for us at that show. That's when I met Matt. And he was such an awkward guy. Weirdly, like, we just clicked, man. I don't know. And then since that day, like, whenever we got the opportunity, if we were playing on the same festival, if we were in the same town, we would meet up and hang out and stuff. I really have a lot of respect for him as well.
I feel like Matthew Mole's the Michael Cera of the South African music scene. Like, he just kind of stumbled into it. He didn't really know. Like, he just, like, you know, one moment he was like really awkward on stage and people just adored him. And, you know, he just had to roll with it.
Honestly, man, that guy was right place at the right time, right music. Everything about it was just so right. And he was so awkward, but the more awkward he was, people just loved it. You know what I mean? That just absolutely ate it up. And what I really like about Matt is the more I've got to know him, is the more you realize that Matt is such a dark horse, man. He's made to be a big artist, and I really believe he will be I really believe he'll break in the next year or two. Like, I think he's doing really, really well, and he's a hard songwriter, dude. Matt Mole is a seriously good songwriter.
And just on your side, you know, what can we sort of expect? You know, you do have the studio that's out in Sri Lanka, and we're obviously looking at the pandemic right now. We're still in 2020. What can people sort of expect from you? And anyone who, you know, sort of became a Josh fan during your days, Gangs of Ballet, you know, what can we sort of expect from you that might be coming up?
Well, I mean, so I haven't stopped making music. I haven't been releasing music, but I've been making music, a lot of it. So I did a whole solo album back in 2016 with Rusty, the guy that did all the Gangs recordings. And I just never really released any of it. I released one song and then kind of left it. And 2 years later, like literally 2 days ago, I think it was, I released another song, which you can go and listen to now if you want to. But I'll probably put more of that stuff out. And then I've got a lot of new stuff. Obviously, having the studio now, I'm able to do whatever the heck I want. It's really amazing. It's such a great position to be in. So I will be releasing and writing and collabing. And one of the things I want to do over here in Sri Lanka, which I was meant to do in May before we got locked down, is I want to use this space to do a songwriters retreat. So obviously, because it's in a hotel and it's such a great location, we wanted to do a place where people could come and stay here. They could surf here. They could write and record music here. And we were going to do in May, we were going to do a month-long retreat for some guys from Netherlands. where people would come here and I would talk on my experience in songwriting and producing and making music, and just teach a bit, and then group people together so that they can write and record and stuff in the space. So my focus is kind of on that right now, because I think that's quite a cool thing to do. But I will definitely be making my own music, and I will definitely be touring when stuff opens up.
Can we see you in South Africa anytime soon, bro, in terms of that aspect of things, touring and performing?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know when exactly. Obviously, it depends on when everything opens up. And I think what I will end up doing is releasing a new EP or album and then touring off the back of that. Yeah, I think that would be the best strategy for getting back into SA.
The musicians retreat, the songwriting retreat, that sounds like a fantastic idea. Like, that's probably one of the coolest initiatives that I've actually heard in a while, and having the means to do that is something incredible.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's not something that I ever would have thought I would have been doing, but yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, specifically in Sri Lanka, there's a lot of yoga retreats. Humans like to hang out with people that they can relate to something. They have something in common. They like to be around similar people, right? So for me, like, it's such a cool environment, because all the studios that I've been in, when you think of a studio, it's always kind of like a bit of a bat cave, you know? This is not that. Like, we put a bunch of, we've got like big windows in it, and it looks out onto like coconut trees, like palm trees, like hundreds of them. Like, there's lots of light. It's a really nice space. And I would love to, I think a songwriting retreat, man, if you want to go and write an album, I think that the retreat, I think that that's going to be something that people would really enjoy. Hopefully by the time, hopefully we can do one soon when people can come here. But I'm so proud of this. I promise, this is one of the coolest things I've ever done.
Sweet. Listen, Holmes, you just mentioned that we're going to get all your handles and stuff, but we usually play out to one of your tracks. And you did mention there that you released, there was the tape or the project that you were working on with Rusty. And I think you mentioned one of the singles that was released, I think 2 days back, you said. Listen, Holmes, would you give us the privilege of playing out of maybe that track there? And if we do play out of this, sort of, what's the track about? What's it called? And
yeah, definitely. So the song I've just released is called Home, and it was written a few years back when I was doing a lot of touring, and ironically, all I wanted to do was be at home, and now the world's locked down and nobody wants to be at home. But the song was written about being away and wanting to be back home. But yeah, you guys can definitely use that.
Awesome, dude. So your handles, bro, where can people sort of reach out to you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, you can get me on Instagram. It's my handle is Hey Josh Scott, and you can get me on Facebook also, Josh Scott. Yeah, those are the only two platforms that I really use.
All right, sweet. And also, guys, this episode will be going up on Apple Podcasts. We are Sludge Underground Podcast on there, on SoundCloud, Sludge Underground Podcast, and obviously we are on social media, Facebook Sludge Underground, on Twitter @Sludge031, on Instagram @Sludge Underground, and obviously on Spotify as well, Sludge Underground Podcast. As for myself, it's 18031 on absolutely everything. Marcel, who are you online?
Cool. You can find me as Marcel Smuts on both Twitter and Facebook, Thorns of Sludge on Instagram, and Marcel Smuts on YouTube. I've recently put up a pretty interesting collab up on the YouTube channel, if you wouldn't mind checking that out. The shameless plug, over now. But yes.
Sweet, bro. Listen, Josh, we can't thank you enough for joining us on the show, dude. It was such an awesome experience talking to you, dude, and just learning everything about you, where you come from and the band, dude. You have no idea how much you appreciate this.
Oh, guys, thanks so much for having me. Honestly, I'm super stoked that you guys are doing this as well. I get really pumped when I hear cool things coming out of South Africa. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Bleeding hard, but I'll be on my way. Another chance to see the world, and I'll begin to stay. I know it's love when you let me go, 'cause it was love when you decided 9 years ago. Oh, when will I to you. When will I get back home to you? There's a war that's going on inside, and there's no life that can replace what I've left behind, yeah. And good things come to those who wait, it's